Excellent. Good evening, everybody. We've got a lot to get through tonight, so we're going to jump right in and start with tonight's session, which is going to be about game control, game management, and from there we'll jump into test prep. The test prep portion of tonight's meeting will not be recorded. So let me get my screen shared so everybody can see what's going on here. Everybody see session 4 up on their screen?
See.
Okie doke. Let's get it started. Okay, so as usual, our regular rogues gallery of training committee members. If you have questions, please ping one of us. Let's get started. Game management. All right, it's a little bit more the art of officiating versus the science of officiating. Okay, one of the best tools that we have as officials is a good, strong pregame meeting. And we're going to talk about that. Part of the art of officiating is making sure we keep the game flowing, that we are communicating correctly with our partners, with the coaches, and with players throughout the contest. Additionally, we have to make sure that our communication with table personnel is done well. We also want to make sure that we talk a little bit more about preventive officiating. You've heard about it all throughout our sessions, ways that we can avoid fouls, talk players out of fouls, talk the coaches into talking the players out of fouls. It's a great way to just keep the game moving along. Okay. So let's talk about some pregame responsibilities. Okay. Before every contest, actually, you know what? I think I skipped something. I apologize. We started talking about the pregame. So one of our best tools is to have a good pregame meeting. What does that mean? That means that you should arrive at a high school contest no later than 60 minutes before a game. Not 30 minutes, not 45. You should be at the site 60 minutes before the game to get ready for the game. It helps you get into the right mindset for the game. It gives your crew chief an opportunity to discuss things about the game, the way he wants things done. We talk about it often that lacrosse is the crew chief's game. So some crew chiefs like on a potential over and back call, yes, no. Some guys like hot. Some guys like over, over, over. Whatever your crew chief says that day, that's going to be the call for over and back. What are we going to do if we want to put on a stall? What signal do we want to use today? There is no official signal. It's an informal signal, whatever your crew chief wants to use. So having an opportunity to discuss that, talking about any odd situations that any of you have come across as we go through the season that we want to be aware of, things we know about these teams that we should be cognizant of. Okay. Your crew chief should use the pregame cheat sheet that USA Lacrosse provides, and we have up on Arbiter in our forms section. You can download that to familiarize yourself with it. When your pregame meeting with your crew is done, you have to walk on the field 30 minutes before the game. The rules say 20. We want you out there 30 minutes before the game. Walk out together as a crew. Check the end lines. Check the sidelines. Check the center line. Make sure they're contiguous. Easy to do when you're walking out onto the field. Did they leave soccer goals too close to the end line that the host management's going to have to move out of the way? Are there hazards on the field? We used to have a big drain right next to the sidelines at a couple of schools that had to be covered with wrestling mats. Those types of things give you a chance to look around, see what's going on, literally get the lay of the land. Make sure they've got cones on all the corners, cones for the box, cones for the center line, right? Make sure that those are out there. Now you have an opportunity to go talk to coaches. That's where we want to get next. Get the home team first. Go find the home team head coach. Introduce yourselves. And then shut up and let the R talk. Right? Crew chief. Coach, all your players legally equipped by rule. You say that in the presence of your crew so that you have witnesses when they say, nobody ever asked me. You download the PDF file that we have up on the forums that let you fill out all the members of your crew, and you can hand them a certification card so they know exactly what they just said yes to. If they say anything other than yes, we can't proceed. So they should be, they ought to be, they better be. The response to that is that a yes, coach? All right, then coach. Who are your captains today, please? And we just talked about earlier in another session how they finally modified the rule that says you can have more than one captain, although we've always accepted more than one. Write it on your card. Who are the captains going to be? Who's going to serve as your in-home today, coach? Starting attackman listed first in the book. When you get a first-year coach who's never done it before and you go in-home and he glazes over like a deer in the headlights, explaining that to him prevents the "I don't know what that is" moment and saves the coach from a little embarrassment. I think he'll appreciate that. Then, coach, we're going to have a national anthem, player introductions. How are we doing? Any other pregame ceremonies we need to be aware of?
Dave, can I say one thing?
Absolutely.
When the coach gives you his in-home, it must be a starting attackman, usually the first attackman in the book. That way, if there's a bench penalty, then the team gets hurt. Sometimes
He
the
said that.
coach is. Oh, he did? Okay. Never mind.
All good. You will find when we get to the lineup section, umpires and field judges, it's your job to make sure that the in-homes that the coaches gave you actually are in the lineup to start the game. They must be starters. So that's one of the pregame responsibilities we'll get to a little bit later. Next, coach, we want to request your assistance in emphasizing sportsmanship today. We will enforce all rules for sportsmanship for players, coaches, and spectators, and as such, we'll have a zero tolerance policy for foul language. We incorporated this into our pregame a couple of years ago. Hillsborough County asked us to eject players for one instance of foul language. They do that in basketball and football in Hillsborough County. I declined that directive because the AD wouldn't put it in writing. But our rule book is clear that foul language is a foul. By the letter of the law, it's an unsportsmanlike conduct foul. Although I usually ramp that and start with a conduct foul and work my way up. And coach, as a reminder, the coach's area extends along the sideline from the substitution area to just inside the restraining line. That is your space and does not belong to players. They're not permitted in it. Coaches must stay in the coach's area. They're not allowed on the field, even during timeouts. Make sure your players stay behind the coach's area in the team area. Make sure they stay out of the substitution area unless their substitution is imminent. Give them the warning during the coach's certification. That's what you're doing. You're setting expectations right up front. When you walk the field, you may realize that you don't have 6 yards for a coach's area and a team area behind it. You may have to adjust. Make sure you give the coaches at least 2 yards to themselves so they have a walking space to walk up and down the sidelines without tripping over players and having players get too close to the sidelines. The adult coaches can defend themselves. We have to watch out for players and make sure they're far up off the sidelines in case of a collision. Okay. Next up, you're going to ask the home coach. Coach, the game clock that's currently counting down on the scoreboard, is it counting down to game time or 5 minutes before game time? You should probably know the answer to that before you ask, but just confirm. Okay, then we'll get captains pick a time on the clock, and we'll talk to your face-off guys after that. You have any questions for us? Now, we have some new rule changes this year, and you may want to, so you're familiar with the rule changes. Did you attend the World Changes seminar on February 5th that TBLOA ran for your school? What do you mean no? And then you can go through the rule changes if they have any questions there, especially as it pertains to the wearing your equipment properly and the helmet coming off rule. Those are going to be the biggest ones we're going to have all year. After you finish with the home coach, you're going to go get the visiting coach and go through the same process all over again, other than the 2 things we talked about that are only asking the home coach. Then it's time to get the captains. So according to the mechanics manual and properly, you've got the umpire getting the home team, field judge gets the visiting team. Go get the captains. Umpire walks out with the home team captains facing the table. Field judge comes out with the visiting team captains facing away from the table. Now the referee is going to talk to the captains. He's going to introduce the officiating crew. He's going to ask the captains to introduce themselves to each other. Any special ground rules like, hey guys, there are some wrestling tarps over on that sidelines. Watch you don't get killed. Something like that. He's going to show each captain the coin that he's going to use to flip for today's contest. He's going to explain that he's going to flip the coin and catch it without turning it over after it's caught. And if the coin is dropped, it'll be flipped again. We don't let it hit the ground. We catch it. He's going to ask the visiting captain to select, heads or tails before he flips the coin. And the umpire will repeat the selection out loud. We don't call it in the air. The team that wins the toss gets the choice of goal to defend or first alternate possession. Unless there's a big sun field or a big wind field, most teams do choose AP. Then the referee will have the captains turn and face the goal they'll be attacking. He'll tap the team that has first AP on the shoulder and indicate that this is the direction they'll be going first and third. That'll tell the captains to return to their bench. And then he's going to tell them, hey, when you line up, during a lineup, make sure that your left shoulder is facing the goal that you're going to defend. Now, send me your face-off guys. So how does that work? Procedurally, ref's going to toss a coin, and we're going to go through that. Now, face-off guys come out with their face-off crosses. Bring them to the midfield line. You don't have to do it at the dot or the X or however they have it painted on that particular field, but somewhere along the midfield line so you can keep guys on their own side of the field. Discuss the face-off procedure. Discuss how you're going to vary your cadence, how you want them to line up, that you're not going to adjust them in the second quarter. You're just going to give them a face-off violation and turn the ball over. So they need to line up right the first time. And if they have questions, you're going to want to answer those. Crew chief, make sure that you give you and FJ an opportunity to jump in with something that you might have missed. Make sure that your face-off guys have tape on their sticks or paint, or that there's a contrasting color so that you can easily see the shaft on the face-off. Right? In high school, it can be tape, paint, or the natural color of the shaft. So take a look. Make sure everybody's got a legal face-off cross. Once you're done with face-off guys, talk to your table personnel. Some of the R's like to do it themselves. Some R's like to delegate that to either the U or the FJ. But make sure that the timer, usually the timer's in the press box, but that you have a timer, that you have a scorekeeper. There's a scorebook. Is the scoreboard time going to be official, or are they going to keep time at the table? And the scoreboard is just there for informational purposes as a reasonable facsimile of time. Does the horn work on the scoreboard when it goes to 0? If not, the horn that is required to be at the table, does it work? If they tell you they're not sure about the horn on the scoreboard, tell them to blow the horn at the table when it gets to 0. Worst thing that happens is you have 2 simultaneous horns, and you know that the scoreboard works after that. All right. Discuss how you're going to handle penalty time administration. Meaning, if somebody leaves the box early, how they need to blow a double horn at the next dead ball so that we can come over and get that figured out. Right. If a coach asks for a count of long crosses, if the coach believes that we've misapplied a rule and asks for a 7-13 conference, right? They need to know how to blow a double horn at the next dead ball, not during live play. The only horn that can be blown during live play is an end of period horn. Any questions here, guys?
Yeah, I want to just, with the table can be, if the table is part of our team, and if you have a well-run table, it makes the game run smoother. So what I like to do is get a name of the person. So when you call over to the table and you call someone by a name, they'll look at you rather than just say table. They don't know what the hell you're talking about. So get someone's name, write it on your scoreboard. The other thing is, if they're bench side, they always are the bench side, but the clock is being run at the press box on the other side of the field, I always like to find out if they have a way to talk to the timer in case we have to fix the clock. So do you have that person's phone number? Do you have a walkie-talkie? Do you have a way to communicate with the scorekeeper? So I like to get that straight so we know what we're dealing with. But make sure the tables, a lot of tables are really good, like at Newsom where the dads are running it, or some of the better schools, the tables. It makes the game run part of your game management. It helps things run much smoother if you get them on board and you get buy-in and they work with you. So spend some time there and get things figured out.
Thank you, Steve. So now we're getting ready to do the lineup. So before we get to the lineup, those last few minutes before they start the anthem and start doing introductions, the umpire and field judge should go recheck the nets. Right, go check, make sure that they haven't put a hole in the net during warm-up, that there aren't a ball or two left behind. in the net. We don't want to have any extra balls in the net and go, well, that's in. No, it's not. And you got one in and one out, and you don't know which one was which. If you have any balls left in net, throw them on the end line. Make sure that there are balls on the end line so that we have balls for shots out of bounds. The NFHS rule says 16 balls. FHSAA says they only have to have 13 balls available on the end lines and sidelines. But make sure that they're out there. When you're checking the nets, make sure that the net is positioned so the back of the pipe sits on the back of the goal line. That's how you know you have a good goal, right? Ball passes completely through the plane formed by the back of the end line and the end of the pipes, back of the pipes. So that's positioning the pipe on the back of the pipe on the back of the end line. On the back of the goal line makes that a little simpler. Okay. Once that's done and we are getting ready to start, we're going to get the starters to come out. Right. When he says red line up on me, blue line up on me. Right? Or goalies have their left shoulder to the goal that they're going to defend. Referee's going to give some quick instructions to the teams. Talk to them about 5 yards on restarts. Anything else the R feels that's important to say to the guys. Then they're going to go to their positions, and we're going to go to ours. If we start like this, we move this way and become the single side, the lead left in the wing. Wing's got his hand up, ready for the opening faceoff. Puts his timer on, make sure we're ready to go. Anything else to add about pregame, gentlemen? Mike, Steve, Wayne? Don't all shout at once. Okay, cool. Moving on. Once game starts, we have to do equipment checks. We are required by rule to do 2 randomly per game. The rule actually says one, at least 1 per half. Most crew chiefs decide to get 2 out of the way in the first half and be done with it. When there's going to be a stick check, usually during a timeout, could be after a goal, could be at quarter time. Your crew chief during pregame will indicate when he would like to conduct stick checks. Usually he'll give you a signal in game, yeah, now, or no, not now. Usually we don't do stick checks if there's a player in the penalty box. But positionally, whether you're lead, trail, or single, if you're the single, your job is to get the ball and bring it over to your partners. Lead and trail need to go get a player from the bench that they're closer to. So, if you are on that side of the field, grab that bench, right? Make sure you get it. And say, number 31, don't touch your stick. Come here and hand me your cross. And start with, don't touch your stick. If he touches the head of his stick, punches it, pulls strings, bashes it into the ground, it's an immediate flag for a 1-minute, non-releasable, unsportsmanlike conduct foul. That's before you check his equipment. Okay. If you do find a foul with his equipment, we enforce that additionally. Okay. You must check everything. So what used to be called the mouth guard, the tooth and mouth protector, right? Shoulder pads, arm pads, unless you're checking the goalie. Gloves, make sure the palms haven't been cut out, checking for altered gloves. That the helmet is on properly. It cannot be removed without undoing the chin strap. Cleats, they've changed the requirement on cleats. They just have to be wearing shoes. They don't have to be cleats. They can just be athletic shoes. But if any of this equipment is wrong, other than the tooth and mouth protector, it is a 1-minute non-releasable foul for illegal or improperly wearing your equipment. In addition to the potential 1-minute foul for mashing his stick. Then after you've checked his regular equipment, then we're going to get into stick checks. Actually checking sticks themselves. So single, give the ball VR. You and FJ each are doing 1 stick. The R is going to do the measuring while each of you, umpire and field judge, does the rollout tests on the sticks. So the R is going to measure positionally. R is facing away from the benches. U and FJ face in towards the bench. So so two of us are keeping eyes on the players. Make sure nothing silliness, we don't have any silly things going on at the benches. If there is an illegal stick, the R is the one who throws the flag and reports it. Okay. We don't have to rush. We got all the time in the world. We got 2 minutes for timeout, plenty of time, right? So what are we checking? When we're checking the stringing of the stick here, we're checking pocket depth, right? We can't see the top of the ball underneath the sidewall. Ball's got to roll out the sides, top, right, top and bottom. Is the head, and the referee is measuring 10 inches long on the head, minimum of 6 inches wide at the top. All shooting strings must be within 4 inches of the top. Now the length of the stick can vary, right? Short poles are 40 to 42 inches in high school. 12 and 14U, same as high school, 40 to 42. Long poles, 52 to 72. If somebody was silly enough to ask for a stick check or an equipment check on the goalkeeper, their stick can be 40 to 72. Right, 10Us, if you're doing I've never had a coach ask for a stick check at 10U, but if they did 37 to 42 for a short pole, 47 to 54 if you're playing with longs. 8U, everything's a short pole, so 37 to 42. When we talked about equipment a few weeks back, Tom mentioned that it's important to mark the important dimensions on your tape measure with magic marker. Makes it easier to find than trying to remember all those numbers. You just need to look for the colored marker on your tape. It makes things a little easier. Yeah. Marks at 4 inches, 6 inches, 10 inches, 40 inches, 42, 52, 72 in black. Those are the measurements you need for everything in high school. Add 37, 47, and 54 in blue magic marker for 10U and 8U. It'll keep it easy. Just look for the right colored marks. Now, there are some things that are technically illegal, but are not a penalty. You give them a fix-it ticket. So if they have strings longer than 2 inches, they need to go cut the strings and not bring the stick back into the game. If you look at the cross in the photo here, you'll see string by the referee's right wrist that is significantly longer than 2 inches hanging from those. That needs to be trimmed. If the end cap is missing, that needs to be replaced before that stick can come back in the game. Bottle cap or tape does not an end cap make. It must be a professionally manufactured end cap. For Fogos, we talked about checking the Fogo sticks earlier, but the Fogo may not have tape that touches the throat of their cross. And if somebody has a tape ring for grip, it can't be more than 3 inches from the butt end, and it still has got to be within the circumference rule. So make sure that if you see that, you got to check that. The shaft of the cross has to be relatively straight. It can't be bent, mangled, twisted, to make sure that they don't gain an extra advantage. There are some face-off crosses out there, face-off shafts that have extra funny handles. They're still straight, but it basically gives them an extra lever. Those have been deemed legal for play, so that's not a foul. Just you may see that where it's like, well, this is not really round. It's got like a lump in it. Apparently, those are legal, so don't worry about that. If you're doing a random stick check right after a goal, or coaches ask for an equipment check on the goal scorer, we will take a goal off the board if the goal scorer, and only the goal scorer, has a deep pocket, an altered stick, or he adjusted it prior to requesting, prior to us being able to inspect it. We asked him for it and he adjusted it. If he has illegal shoes, even though he kicked the ball into the net, the goal would still count. He still gets a minute for illegal shoes. I don't think they have, it's got like no heel on it or something. Yes, he would get a penalty, but the goal doesn't come off the board. Goals only come off the board for illegal sticks. A reminder that a penalty for an illegal stick is 2 minutes, non-releasable, whether it's a stringing or alteration. It is a non-releasable foul. The stick, however, may be repaired and returned to the game. In theory, like I said, if it's a the stick is too short. I'm not sure how they fix it, short of putting a new shaft in. Okay, there is a really weird scenario that can happen with equipment checks after goals. So we have a flag down and a slow whistle for a push on B. A scores, so we wipe out the flag on B, the goal wiping out the technical foul. The goal scorer's equipment is checked either because we decided to check it or because the coach requested it. We find the stick is illegal. Well, he's got a 2-minute stick penalty. We wipe the goal because the goal scorer's stick was illegal. But now B1's push foul isn't waived. And so B is going to serve 30 seconds and A is going to serve their 2-minute foul. They are not considered simultaneous. They're live ball, dead ball, but B's 30-second push is going to be locked in because we're adjudicating them at the same time. For those of you who had an opportunity to watch the FHSAA course on simultaneous fouls, they discussed thinking of all fouls that are adjudicated at the same time as simultaneous, but here we have a situation where the fouls are not simultaneous, but they are adjudicated at the same time. So we do have to deal with the releasability issues in Rule 721D. Now, R's, you have an illegal stick, chuck that flag high up in the air. See Wayne Gebline for instructions. Then report the penalty using C note. Red 5, illegal cross, 2 minutes, locked, 2 minutes full serve, non-releasable. Either way, give the signal for non-releasable and make sure the table understands. Explain what was illegal about the stick to the coach. Coach, it was too short. Coach, the head's pinched. Coach, the ball would not roll out. But under no circumstances are you to demonstrate what was illegal about the stick. You and your crew determined the stick was illegal because the ball didn't roll out. By the time you report the foul and it's been handed around 3 times, the stringing may have changed. You don't, if you've already determined that it's illegal, it's illegal. You don't demonstrate. You explain and move on. If you have penalties by both teams, right? You have a stick foul on each team. They are considered simultaneous dead ball fouls. And an illegal stick by both teams, you have equal duration, right? If you had a face-off pending, the face-off goes. If a team had the ball on that timeout, then they're going to keep it, right? Assuming the penalty times are equal. If the penalty times are unequal, you award it to the team with less penalty time. That is, you had one that had an illegal stick and one that had an illegal arm pad. Okay. You're only going to go to alternate possession if nobody had the right to possession and you would not have had a face-off pending. So if the timeout was taken pursuant to an injury and for some reason an equipment check was requested. And so the other coach said, well, if you're going to request an equipment check on me, I'm going to request an equipment check on you. And then they both ended up turning up something illegal. You try and avoid AP whenever possible, but that's a situation where you'd have to use it. Comments, gentlemen? Thank you. All right, moving on to communication. So we talked about how we communicate with our partners in previous sessions, right? We talked about verbal and nonverbal communication. So today we're going to talk about how we deal with players and coaches. How you communicate with each of these constituencies goes a long way to determining how they communicate and interact with us. So it's really important. So we'll start with how we talk to players, right? Avoid addressing players by anything perceived as pejorative, right? So don't say, here's the ball guy, son, kid, bud. If you ever work a game with me, you'll notice I call everybody sir. I will refer to the goalkeeper as keep or keeper. I try to refer to players by their number, even if I know their name, sir. Anybody with a white shirt, 31, pick up the ball, please. Right, so here's the ball, sir. I had a dad ask me why I was calling his son sir, because in his household, he's sir and the kid is not. And I explained that I was modeling the behavior that I wanted to see. I'm treating his son with respect, so he treats me with respect. And dad was like, okay, got it. No one usually gets mad if you treat them with good manners. Next up, create allies, right? We talked about our time that we spend with the captains before the game. Captains can be your best friends in dealing with problem players. You will probably hear our talk about it. I know one of our training committee members likes to tell the captains that they know better who their knuckleheads are than we do. So they should make sure that, yeah, Mr. Doyle, that was you. If they rein in the knuckleheads, we don't have to, because the only way we can do it is with flags, and that ruins everybody's good time. When you see a guy starting to get out of control, walk over to captain and say, hey, tell him that his guy under control. He does not want his team to be hurt by a foul, and is going to get his teammate under control. Let them be the heavy before we have to be, right? Preventive officiating goes a long way to avoiding difficulties later. Mike is really good with his pregame around that. Anything you want to add, Mike?
Don't suck.
Okay, well, I guess that works too. Moving on, how we communicate with coaches. We want to treat both coaches the same way. It's always preferable to refer to coach as coach rather than using his first name, even if you know who he is. Even if you did his club team on Saturday and now you've got his varsity team on Monday, and you just talked to him 2 days ago, just refer to him as coach. It doesn't hurt. No one says you're playing favorites when you refer to everybody by coach. Usually when a coach is talking to you during the game, not pregame, but during the game, he's seeking information or he's just venting, right? So if he's asking a question, we need to answer the question, but we don't need to address venting. So at some point, you may have to say, coach, it's my job to inform you, not convince you. But if you can do both inform and convince, you're going to be in great shape. You have to watch out for carryover comments, especially if you're working a game for a team the second time in the season. Well, you didn't call that last game, or you didn't call that last quarter, or my favorite, nobody's called that all year. The best way to answer those types of things, coach, I can't speak about previous games, but this is what we're doing today. This is how this game is getting called. And just doesn't matter what happened in a previous game. It doesn't matter what another crew did. When the coach comes over and says, what would you do in this situation? Try and avoid the hypotheticals, because usually it's about a specific incident and you did not get full information from the coach. He's giving you his slanted view of what happened and wants you to ring up a fellow official. I can't talk about what happened in a previous game, coach. It's just easier that way. Once the game starts and coaches are asking questions, they're trying to get some information. Just keep facing the field. Keep your eyes on the game. Stay calm. Keep an even tone of voice. Always be professional. Try and be brief. Stick to the facts. Pretend you're Joe Friday. Just the facts, man. Live ball comments from you to the coach should be short and to the point. You've got a game to referee, right? Just quick, short. If he asks a question, he needs an answer. If he's just a comment, if he's complaining but not actually asking a question, doesn't necessarily mean we have to respond to that. Right? Statements do not require answers. Coach is mad. That call was awful. That's his opinion. He's not asking you for information. He is clearly just venting, right? There's a big difference between that's an awful call and you're an awful official, right? The former is venting. You can ignore that. The latter can't be tolerated, and we've got to address that somehow, either with a conduct foul, taking the ball away, or if it's worse than you're an awful official, maybe it needs to be more than a conduct foul. It is always preferable if an official is yelling at one member of the crew that, if a coach is yelling at one member of the crew, that a different member of the crew is the one that throws the flag. It just looks better. We always talk about taking care of your crew. Here's an opportunity for you to do that. Especially there are two of you bench side in a high school game, right? You can hear it. Everybody can hear it. Shut it down, right? If the coach says that was a terrible call, don't come back and say that was a terrible play, although you probably are right. Being sarcastic and being professional are in contradiction with one another. So let's not do that. Similarly, if a coach asks a respectful question, he needs a respectful answer. And what I mean by that is here, coach said, what did he call? Well, I'm not sure what he called. He signaled an illegal procedure, but didn't say what type of illegal procedure it was. At the next dead ball, I'll find out and I'll get you an answer. But if you tell the coach you're going to get him an answer, make sure you get him an answer at the next dead ball, right? The next opportunity you have to consult with your partner, get him an answer. If you have a rotation because there was a goal on that end and your partner was the single and now you're the single, well, tell him, coach wanted to know what that IP was down there. Can you make sure you give him an answer before we face it off? But, make sure that you answer his question. Don't be afraid to say, coach, I didn't see it. I might have missed it. There were 3 guys between me and the play. I got screened. I didn't have a good look at it. Now, if it's on the other side of the field, that's a different story, right? That's going to be your partner's area. Coach, he's right there. He had a much better look at it than we did. You can tell him what you saw. Coach, to me, it looked very clear that he got him on the shoulder. That was not in the back. He may disagree, but you explained your call and you moved on, or in this case, a no call, right? Don't make stuff up. If you make stuff up, you instantly lose credibility. So just, here's what I saw, and that's it.
Can I just
jump in.
So in the spirit of taking care of your crew, if you have a newer, younger official and the coach is riding them pretty good, if you're a senior guy, go at next opportunity, take him, move him away from it. It's not the coaches. If he's riding the guy real heavy, just get him, put him on the other side, and just take a spot and take some of the heat and protect that guy, the newer official. So just be cognizant of that. Don't let him sit and hang him out to dry. Take care of your crew.
And similarly, be willing to take yourself off that side. If you feel like you've gotten too much heat from a coach, you've already hauled him for a conduct foul, rotate yourself over to single, get away from the coach for a little while. Gives you an opportunity to collect your thoughts, gives the coach an opportunity to calm down and chew on somebody else for a change. But at some point, as we're going through this, we talked about it before. It's my job to inform you, not convince you. Sometimes you're not going to convince them. They're just mad and they're just going to take it out on you. Coach, that's enough. Coach, if this continues, it's going to hurt your team. Here on the slide, you've made your point and we're going to move on. Right? We have conduct fouls and unsportsmanlike conduct fouls. If it gets bad enough, we can certainly use those. We hope it doesn't happen often, but at some point a coach could lose the privilege of having an open line of communication. Coach, I'm not talking to you. It's not helping the game. That's not going to de-escalate the situation, but it will make it clear that you're just not listening anymore. Okay, we've got some advanced situations. We talk about it all the time. Protect your crew. Never, ever, ever throw your partner under the bus. Coach says, what was that? And you turn, I have absolutely no idea. Yeah, don't do that. Even though you may think it, you got to keep that to yourself, right? Your partner makes a call on the far side. He throws his hands up and starts throwing himself. Coach, he's right there. If your partner's in good position, that's the best defense. Coach, he's right there. You're at least 60 yards away from it. He's right there. Hey, coach, it's hard to tell from where we are. My partner had a better angle on it. Or I don't have a great angle, but I'll ask him what he saw. Right? We talked about that already. Again, if you tell a coach you're going to get him an answer, make sure you follow up or that your partner follows up. It builds trust. So just like we talked about it before, don't be afraid to say you missed it. Your coach, I didn't see that. I wasn't looking there. I was looking somewhere else. I guarantee you, when you tell a coach, I didn't see it, I wasn't looking there. Well, what are you looking at? You can tell them, I was focused on the play at the crease, coach, to make sure your kid didn't lose his head. Oh, okay, well, I guess that's reasonable, right? I didn't see what went on behind the play. But be honest. Building trust with coaches goes a long way to keeping them from being in your ear hole. All right. Now, stuff we hope we never see. Things getting out of hand. What do we do if there's a fight? God forbid. Right. So in a situation, we talked about this before, preventive officiating, right? Stop it before it starts. Wayne talked about this.
Yes.
Wayne talked about this last week. And Steve did too. You see the temperature of the game getting up. You have to start bringing it back down. You have to start calling the game a little tighter to make sure that we do not have
Time of
things
year.
escalate to the point where we end up in a fight. Sometimes, however, Doyle's right and the knuckleheads take over. So if this is our typical positioning with the ball out near the box line on the far side of the field, these two guys get into a fight at the crease. Well, lead and single. Whistles, loud, lots of whistles. Start screaming. 22 blue, 4 gold, knock it off. You want to yell out numbers and colors. It will help you remember them later. Who's fighting? Yell out numbers, blow whistles. Get loud. If they're still going at it, Rick Junta is fond of saying a Fox 40 in the ear hole is very disorienting. So blow whistles, blow them loud. Don't pull kids off the pile. Don't pull kids off the pile. Whistles, yelling, remembering the numbers. Trail official. Freeze the benches. Yell freeze. Put your hands up, big. Stay on your benches. Coach, control your bench. Anybody who gets past you is automatically ejected by rule for leaving the bench during an altercation. You've got to remember those numbers, trail. Anybody gets past you, any coaches get past you, they are ejected by rule. The players who are involved in the fight, anybody throws a punch, they are ejected. If somebody decided to stand there like Everlast and be a punching bag, well, maybe they get to stay in the game. But that is rare that somebody in a lacrosse game just gets beat on, right? Somebody is going to defend him or he's going to defend himself. You got to get numbers. Only separate the players if it can be done without endangering the safety of other players or of yourself. Don't put yourself at risk, right? If you feel like you can separate them safely without putting anybody at risk, or having somebody say, "Don't touch my kid," fine, right? So what do we have? The unofficial, whichever official is watching the ball, is immediately blowing his whistle. We talked about this. Long, loud whistles. Scream. Right? Get there as quickly as you can. Remember numbers. Once calm has been restored, send the teams to their benches. Everybody, even if you're ejecting them, everybody goes to their benches. Then the three of you need to get together with at least one of you watching the bench area. We talked about this the other day. If we have a conference with 3 officials, right? Somebody is always watching the benches. Okay, now, the 3 of you get together. What did you see? What did you see? Take out your cards. Start writing numbers down. Number 22 blue, number 4 gold, each threw punches. 31 blue left the bench area. Gold's assistant coach left the bench area. Get together. You have a lot of reporting that has to happen now. You probably will not be able to tell which of those guys left the bench first to try and figure out sequence of the dead ball fouls. Maybe you can. Maybe you can't. But that session on simultaneous fouls is going to come in handy right about now. So remember that when we eject a player ejection is a 3-minute non-releasable foul. We eject a coach, it is a 1-minute non-releasable foul. So in this situation, if both 22 blue and 4 gold were ejected for fighting, 31 blue left the bench area and a gold coach left the bench area, and we can't determine which of those 2 guys on the dead ball left the bench area first, we're going to end up awarding the ball to gold because they have less penalty time. Because the coach got 1 minute while player 31 got 3 minutes. So team by team, goal ended up with less penalty time. They would get the ball. The referee is going to be the crew chief. The R is going to be the one who reports this to the tape. Because the R ultimately has responsibility for writing the post-game report with your help as you and FJ. But it will also help to solidify in the crew chief's mind exactly what happened when he's written it down, and now he's reported it to the table, right? He writes it, he says it, helps to reinforce it in memory. On the back of your card, you need to write down the player, what he was ejected for, the time, what quarter it was, what the score was at the time. All of that has to go into the report that we file with the state. It's called an AT6 UC. When the game is over after an ejection, you must immediately text Sal Legiri. If you're in TBLOA, if you're in SGLOA, you got to text Richie. If you're in TBLOA, you got to text me also. If you're in SGLOA, you got to text Joe and let me know that there was an ejection. What happened? That you are about to write the report and that you'll be sending it over to Sal and to me for our review before it goes to the state. Before you push submit on the form, we need to see a copy of your narrative to make sure that it checks all the boxes so we don't have to hear back from the state and why you do it a second time, rather do it right the first time. Circle up with your crew after the game and post game. Make sure that you each remember the situation the same way. And if not, pick up those extra details. Write them down on a scrap piece of paper, and then when you get home, type it up, circulate it to your crew, let them edit it. Grammar, spelling. Make sure you get the players' names from the book before you leave the field so that you have that information. If for any reason the scorer does not give you the player's name, they refuse, they ran away, whatever it happens to be, you can get player names off of Max Preps most of the time. And if you can't get the player's name, you will refer to the player by school and number, and you will say in your report that the home team scorer and or visiting team scorer refused to provide the information. That's important for the state to know. Now, assuming you and the coaching staff collectively of both teams, right, the 3 of you and the 2 head coaches feel that the game can be continued. Now that you've had a chance to calm everything down, you've handled the penalties that need to be handled. If you feel like the game can continue, make sure that everybody's good with that. If there's a feeling that this game cannot continue safely, you do have the right to suspend the game. That requires another report, but safety being paramount. If the coaches feel the game can't continue, then we stop the game and we suspend it. Right? When we send that report into the state about the ejections, followed by a report of a game that did not complete, the state will figure out how to handle it. It's not our job to handle it. It's not our job to tell coaches how long their player is going to be suspended for. That's up to the state. We have no say in that matter. Don't posit. Just how long to get, that's up to the state, sir. I have no idea what the state will do. That is totally their decision, and they're not going to ask me for my opinion. Steve, Mike, Wayne, anything else to add here? The good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, you'll never be in this situation, but you need to be prepared for it. Okay. How do we fix problems? We all make mistakes. None of us has ever officiated a perfect game as much as we may think we have. But our friend, I'm sorry, we all make mistakes, right? So better officials just make fewer mistakes, right? What kinds of mistakes do we make? We misapply a rule. We misunderstand a rule. We are out of position. So we talked about it before. We might not see it. We may lose focus because the game is 14-2 in the second quarter. That happens. We're all human. That happens. You figure we didn't see it. We're not focused. If we learn from our mistakes, they can become a positive experience. Now, how do we handle the mistake? Now that has a huge impact on our game management, right? If there is an error and it's significant and requires more than just I pointed the wrong way. Sorry, it's still white. I just pointed the wrong way. We're going to give you 20 seconds to substitute because I pointed the wrong way and you were running subs on the field. That's my fault. We're going to fix that. But get together as a crew and fix the mistake as soon as you can. All right. If one of your partners makes a mistake, don't show them up. Say, it happens. We're going to fix it, coach, as best as I can fix it under the rules. Right. You can check Rule 713 for how we fix errors. I'm not going to go into the whole thing there. But if you make a mistake, own it. Apologize. And I'll work to make sure I don't do that again. Coach, I'm sorry. That's completely my fault. When you admit that you made an error, it's much harder for a coach to yell at you. Right? If he thinks you made a mistake and you say, no, I'm absolutely right, but you know deep down you made a mistake and everybody else knows you made a mistake, you lose a lot of credibility. You say, coach, I made an error and I'm sorry, I messed it up. Well, that coach knows that you will take ownership of your mistakes. And if you have the integrity to say that I made a mistake, they're going to trust you a lot more when you get calls right. So smooth sea never made a skillful sailor, right? So if everything always went well, you wouldn't get any better. This is something that Gordon was fond of saying. We keep it in our presentations. Some of the more common ones. All right. I threw a flag because green's offside. Oh, but green has the ball. Right. We have an inadvertent flag here. The call is still that green is offside, but it shouldn't have been a flag. It should have been an immediate whistle for a turnover. Right. So in this situation, you're just going to blow your whistle, pick up your flag and say, we have an inadvertent flag. Green is still offsides. It's going to be white ball. Right. Flag is waved off. It was not a flag. It was just a turnover.
Not a
But
free clear.
not a free clear. Offsides is wherever the ball was when we acknowledged that there was offsides. So what we talk about pace is our performance after we make a critical error. So first up, we talked about this already. Acknowledge the error. Own it. Own it to everybody. You realize you made an error and you need to blow your whistle. Blow your whistle. Get together with your crew. Explain to the crew, hey, I screwed this up. Let's talk about how we fix it. So discussing with your crew what the appropriate fix is. How do we fix this under the rules? Then we're going to have to go and explain it to both coaches. You know, coach, we made an error. We need to fix it. Here's how we fix it under the rules. Sometimes that's an easy fix. Sometimes it's a more complicated fix, but you have to explain it to both coaches, explain the situation. Here's how we're going to fix it. Everybody's going to get time to substitute. You know, once we tell them how we're going to restart, where we're going to restart, where the ball's going to be, and then we move on. Now, moving on is easier said than done in some cases, especially if it was your error. You need to compartmentalize that and move on. Learn from it. Think about it after the game. Right now, you've got the rest of the game to officiate, but make sure that we don't dwell on it too much. You've got, we heard from Rick Junta earlier. Focus on the next 4 minutes for the next 4 minutes. Lock in for a strong 4 minutes. And then after 4 minutes are up, lock in for another 4 minutes. Just focus on the next 4 minutes. You don't have to worry about all 48. Gentlemen? Okay. So now we're going to talk about the makeup of a professional official, the 7 C's. Right? We talked about a skillful sailor before. So 7 C's. Competence. Right? This is knowing your rules, knowing your mechanics. Communication. We spent a lot of time talking about that. Here we have a restart. Official is telling the goalkeeper where the ball's going to be. It's hard to over communicate with a goalkeeper on a restart, especially after a foul. I will walk right over to the goalkeeper and say, you're going to be down 1 man, 1 minute for a slash. Ball's going to be restarted in the far alley on my partner's whistle. I've never had a keeper look at me and go, don't care. Everyone was like, thanks. They always want to know where the ball's going to be, right? Give them the whole situation. Now, coaches, in theory, are getting paid to do the job that they're doing, right? Especially at the high school level. Now we're absolutely dealing with paid coaches. They're going to be a little bit more impassioned. They're going to ramp it up a little bit. That's not to say that the 10U dads aren't going to be, just as impassioned because they're reliving their glory days through their kid. But when a coach comes to you with a genuine concern, hey, my kid's getting whacked around in there. All right, coach, we'll take a look for it. Thanks for letting us know. We'll keep an eye out for it. We need to be consistent. If partner throws a flag for us because what he saw was a slash and you thought maybe it was a soft slash, but now you got to call that for the rest of the game. So here, Dave Petramala is complaining, and Coach Russ like, Coach, that's the same flag we threw on them in the second quarter. You can't complain about it now. We've been incredibly consistent. You knew this was this is the way this game was going to get called from the second quarter on. Coaches love consistency. At least they know how they can coach their team for the rest of that day. Conviction. Make a call, be sure. Right? I'm certain. Right? Big, strong signals. Courage. Right? Sometimes you have to make the tough call. Right here we have the single side official coming in and wiping out a goal. Likely for a crease violation, but coming in big, selling no goal. And you see somebody's already like, what? But you have to have the courage of your convictions. Right? We talked about conviction, but you have to have courage too. There is a 7th C, counting, clarity of vision, take your pick. Anybody notice that I only went through 6 C's, not 7? Right?
What's
Paying
good,
attention. Yeah, counting, important. All right. Now, when the final whistle does sound on a game, we're not finished. We have a few more things that we have to do. The crew chief is responsible to go to the table and confirm the score and sign the scorebook. The rules still require us to sign a scorebook. Some schools won't ask, but it's always good practice to make sure that the score that they have in the book matches the score that's on your card and or on the scoreboard. If you brought any personal items, a small bag, extra drinks, pick them up, and then boogie out to the parking lot. Have a post game with your crew in the parking lot at somebody's back bumper. They don't give us dressing rooms down here in Florida for lacrosse like they do for other sports. So our meeting room is usually a parking lot space. If you had any weird calls during the game, what did you have there? We talked about what to do if you have an ejection. You got to talk about that. Hey, when we had that, you had that big hit in the corner, and we went, nobody else saw it. You wanted to go 2 minutes, and Dave, you talked me down to 1 minute because nobody else saw it. Why'd you talk me down to 1 minute? Well, here's why. Why did you think it should have been 2? And we can continue that conversation. If you're the crew chief, make sure you give your partners some actionable feedback. Things they did well. Things they didn't do so well. Things they can improve on. Crew chiefs, accept constructive criticism from your crew. In that situation I just described, partner
Still
tells me,
on.
Dave, I didn't appreciate you downgrading my foul from 2 minutes to 1 minute.
When I'm done, I'll come to you.
That's the kind of, okay. And I can explain again why I did it, and you can explain to me why you didn't like it, and that's fine. You have that conversation. But if somebody is giving you feedback, recognize that they're giving you the feedback because they care about you in some way. If they didn't care, they wouldn't tell you at all. right? They're trying to help you get better. So receive that feedback in the spirit of I care, and I'm trying to make you a better official. Anybody else have anything else they want to throw in there?
Yeah, it's Wayne. Also in the pregame, the most important is whoever didn't have the conviction and courage to throw their flag high has to buy a brisket sandwich at Wawa.
Brisket sandwich. Okay. Got it. Okay, so
Good.
that concludes the game management section of our session tonight. If you give me a second here, I'm going to.
Oh, you unmuted me.
I did. I didn't realize you were here. Sorry about that.
I was waving, but you can't see me, so.
No, not when I'm looking at slides. I apologize for that.
No, that's okay. So two things that came up, and I just wanted to bring them up because they made me this weekend. They made me refocus, right? Late in the game on Saturday, I'm working with Mr. Fafudis. 1 goal game. Defensive team is down. Offensive team gets it below the line. This is a college game. They call timeout. 35, 40 seconds left in the game. Out of the timeout, defensive team goes into what? Pressure ride, right? The 2 guys on the ball, they get the goalie out, and he's running around. Okay. But one of the things we didn't do was actually confirm that the goalie was on the field, because the goalie was an attackman. So we ended up stopping play, I don't know, 10 seconds into this run because the lead couldn't find the goalie. And as the trail, I probably should have signified and called that out, that the guy was standing, 15 yards away from me. Goalie's on the field, doesn't say he has to stand in the crease. So at a restarts, make sure, especially in a situation like that, make sure you're making those counts. And you're not just counting 10 players, but you're actually counting for the guy with the 12-inch stick and who's equipped to be a goalie, right? The other thing, that is always a reminder for me is late in the first half, I think it was 5 seconds left, tie game, one team's clearing. We had a face-off. When we were clear, it was a face-off. Steve says, I'm going to take the face-off myself. I want you guys at GLE both times. A good crew chief should be telling you that, right? We got a tight game towards the end of the game, or it's a halftime. We got something that might go on. I need you guys in position. I'll handle face-off by myself. We've all done it, right? The mechanics changed over the years, but normally, 5 years ago, we all stood there by ourselves in essence. The other guys would drop out to the wing lines because their responsibility at that point was they were going to watch for the guy who's had his toe on the line and not really help you with a face-off. So you just kind of remember as you're walking out from these things, okay, what are the things I got to be looking for on a restart? Restarts are very important. I don't know what, Steve, if you remember what Dave said the other day that Abbott said to him, if you can control 3 things, you're going to have a great day. One of them was restarts, right? And if you guys can control restarts, the game management part of it becomes easy. Getting those restarts done the right way, making sure you got those 5, the 5 yards, or you're going to call it if it's not, right? Everything's in place the way it's supposed to be. That's one part of the game that really, really helps it. We handled it from a mistake perspective, right? We found it. I literally turned to the coach and said, you didn't pull your goalie, did you? He's like, no, he's standing right next to you. I totally missed him. And I'm sitting there banging my head at the end of the game, going, I can't believe I missed where the hell the goalie was, right? That could have been huge, right? They got 10 guys on the field, and all of a sudden they throw the goalie on behind me, and I'm not paying attention. So just remember the little things on those restarts. You got time, especially in the timeout. So we went through everything, Dave?
We've gone through all of game management. Anybody else have anything else they need to add?
I was gonna show a Palumb video. I'm not sure if you wanted to see it, but I was watching it today, and it kind of gives you a good idea. And Palumb, he does. We all
Yeah,
see him
Tom,
on
share
TV, right?
your screen and show it.
But what, the reason why I want you guys to see it is to look at something that Wayne always talks about. He's having a good time. Right? But he's always in control. And he gets a little bit over the top because he's dealing with professionals. But when you watch it, I think you'll kind of enjoy it like I did. So let me get to the video, make sure I got it. Yes, I want the right one. And then I'll share it once it starts. Share, where is it? You can read it. I don't think you can hear what I have, right?
And we can't hear it. I don't recommend you put your arm around the coach's neck, but
No, he gets away with a lot of stuff that we can't, but the control part of it, the constant communication, he's talking to his line mates, he's answering coaches, and he's controlling the game. Watch when he starts to deal with the benches. We could kind of stop it here because this goes on. And I'm sure you all saw the other one where he gets a little crazy. You know what you're doing. He really went after the Redwoods coach. Let me stop this because it's very loud.